And finally, without any further ado, it is my honor to introduce to you one of the two people on this screen. And I guess when that person starts speaking, you can decide who that is. But no, with joking aside, Heidi wasn't able to join us today, but this presentation is in the very capable hands of my friend Brett Barker from Process Optimizer. If you don't already know Process Optimizer, you won't be able to forget them after today's presentation. Brett is going to speak with us about a really essential piece of our operating system, which is process, and how to make sure your processes aren't an energy time suck, but that they're actually helpful to your organization. So Brett, I'm so grateful to have you here with us. I'm going to stop my screen share and turn the screen share and the virtual microphone over to you.
All right, let's dive in. So my lovely wife is in Scottsdale, Arizona on day 2 of an engagement. So you got me. What I know about process fits in Heidi's little finger, but let's dive in and see what we can do. So we like to start out with an exercise. You can do this exercise in any group that you're affiliated with. You do it with a leadership team, with a performance group, with a department, and we call it the snowflake exercise. So think about trying this one out next time you get together with your team members. So here's how this works. Everybody gets an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And then you ask everybody to sit down and close their eyes. There's no peeking to see what your neighbor's doing. So we would ask you to fold that sheet of paper one time and tear off a corner. Then fold it again, tear off another corner. Fold it a third time, tear off a corner. And then finally fold it a 4th time, tear off a corner. Then we say, okay, open your eyes, unfold the paper, and guess what? We have a room full of different snowflakes. There isn't 2 alike. So this is representative of what your customer experiences, and it has its roots in process. So our roots in this are, my wife Heidi started the company 7 years ago. Heidi was on the leadership team at P.F. Chang's billion-dollar environment. She earned her lean certification there. Heidi has an MBA and she headed up finance. And so when private equity came in and bought out P.F. Chang's, it was a wonderful billion-dollar transaction. Heidi and I both read Traction. Heidi became a coach and became wildly busy, but discovered instantly that the process piece was missing. The process work that was out there wasn't very good or was absent. People were checking the box. Boy, what an opportunity. So today, we have 5 certified optimizers working across the country. We work with a lot of EOSIs. We work with Pinnacle. We work with Scaling Up. We don't care what operating system you're working on. We speak all the languages, but our bread and butter business comes from coaching referrals. So that's our roots. And this little exercise is something we start out most of our workshops with. I suggest that you try it. Try this snowflake example, because what it demonstrates is this difference in the deliverable, this inconsistent process, and the fact that we haven't really optimized things. Because remember, when we talk about process, we're going to talk about the documentation piece and then the optimization piece, 2 very different pieces. So when we think about processes, the first thing we need to do is quantify inefficient or lacking processes. We are a data-driven company. We always remind people, hey, there's opinions and then there's data. We love enthusiastic opinions, but at the end of the day, data, and I'll come to scorecard data and metrics a little later in the presentation, are critically important. Our clients tell us that after we've done process work with them, the return on investment is 3 times to 10 times the investment in the first year, an amazing number. So today, this people and process related issue is something we hear every week. When we have our optimizers on the road, when Heidi gets back in tomorrow, she's going to tell me about a people problem that was related to her from the leadership team with this company in Scottsdale. I can promise it. So when we think about the lack of repeat business, the turnover, the wasted resources, you have to ask yourself, okay, how much does this really add up to? So when we think about process, and in terms of solving this problem, one of the things we hear from our best coaches is this. They always say, Brett, we need to educate our visionaries so that they understand that process should not be viewed as an event, right? That's a big statement. They should not view it as an event, because we have a tendency sometimes to say, oh, good, We've documented our processes. Let's check that box and get rid of it. The real excellence, the real opportunity in business, which is a fantastic thing, is when we get to this continuous improvement, this idea of optimization. And it goes back to the snowflake issue, because as we perfect processes, then people participate. We get employee champions. And then one of the most wonderful things that happens in great process work is when team members come to you as a leader and they say, hey, this is how we do it. Look at this. That is powerful. So this whole notion of quantifying this is critically important. So one of the things we do when we start a workshop and start to engage a client is we start developing metrics. We want to measure for all the processes, the leading indicators, the lagging indicators, all of the measurables. This is critical. So as we do that, we're trying to establish all of this data that's going to give our process some real meaning and allow it to live and breathe and grow and continue over time, so that it doesn't become this event which is then closed, put on the shelf, and never used again. So W.E. Deming, an American guru way ahead of his time, he was born in 1923. He said these two things, right? If you can't describe what you're doing, you don't know what you're doing. And then the better one is the bad process. We hear from people every day, and I'm certain you see this with your clients sometimes. When we hear about people problems out there, which is our most expensive resource, if we have bad processes or we're lacking processes, what happens? Well, the people start doing workarounds, and that's the natural thing to do. The duct tape comes out, the Band-Aids, the baling wire, and they start doing workarounds. And they do workarounds because they have to. But here's the problem. The more the workarounds, the more we're sending our people home at night. They're worn out, they're miserable. And then what happens? Pretty soon they're gone. So this whole idea of a bad process beating a good person is really important. So we always remind people that process work should be viewed as a bottom-up exercise. So in our case, when we engage clients, and you should be doing this if you're doing your own process work, you want to talk to the people doing the work. You want to interview the people who are the worker bees. And you'll find that when you do that, you create this momentum. So if we're really going to get to this fantastic concept, followed by all, as we eliminate bad processes, we reinvigorate our people. And in reinvigorating our people, we create a better environment for them to thrive. So remember the whole workaround and what it costs you. You know, one of the things we hear from clients, and this is important, I think, for all coaches and guides to remember, is this. When you have people with workarounds and they're trying to make this stuff up and kind of solve these problems, the issues and the to-dos and the rocks that come out of that aren't necessarily root cause. And so sometimes we start talking about better hiring, better training. Most of the time, it's a bad process. So if you can clean up the process, if you can really get your people involved, what you find is your workers become your best process champions. And that is very, very powerful. So how do we create processes? Well, it's a simple 5-step process. Identify, document, test them. That's a big one. Train and hold employees accountable. Great big one. And then the continuous improvement cycle, followed by all. So interestingly, we see in most of our clients that there's several big problems. First, document them. I hear people say all the time, oh, well, it's not rocket science. Well, of course it's not. The subtlety and nuance and the engagement is critical. So we always say, you know, we don't dabble in process. You shouldn't dabble in process. So when we document them, what we're after is we really want to tie measurables to every process. And so we especially want to find leading indicators, because as we develop leading indicators, we perfect scorecards. As we perfect scorecards, we also improve how we hire, who we hire, how we onboard and train, because we can accurately articulate the position we're hiring for and what that person does. So in documenting, we're after some really clear, easy steps. And by the way, most people, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of our clients, they don't really realize that the foundational critical step with process is to document the high-level steps first. We oftentimes come in and people have documented work instructions and SOPs, but unfortunately, those documents tend to sit on a shelf. Nobody uses them. They feel good, they look good. There's all this stuff, but nobody uses them. So the foundational import here is to document the high-level steps. Remember, better, not perfect, the 20% that gets you 80%. And in doing that, you create an environment where you can test and pilot them. This is critical. So when we sit down and work with a company, we obviously identify the processes. We like to start with the functional accountability chart. And great process work, by the way, will show that accountability changes and improves over time. We have seen serious accountability changes through process work because of the clarification at the high level. So then once we document, we test and pilot, we get everybody to say, yep, those are the high level steps. That's what we do. This is how we do it in our customer service product. This is how we do it in our marketing part of our business or whatever area it is. Then we go out and start building this out. The process of continuous improvement comes after this, because then we start to build the process out. One of the tendencies we see in most clients is they tend to want to document all the exceptions. And interestingly, if you interview any of our people who are certified in this, they will tell you that is precisely what you do not want to do. We want to capture the high-level steps as foundational and then build them out from there. In that way, we see the whole, we clarify the whole, we identify accountability, and then we start to build out all the measurables. So as we move forward, scorecards are a critical element of processes. And we always remind people that scorecards should not drive process. Process should drive scorecards. We hear something from attendees in our workshop every week, and it's this. Someone will stand up and say, oh my goodness, we've been counting A, B, and C in this process. We really should be counting X, Y, and Z. If you think about it, ask yourself this. Do your scorecards have a predictive quality to them? Here's what I mean by that. Leading indicators give us more valuable information that we can push down to the lowest levels so that we can do something before the process goes off the rails. So one of my favorite examples is contracting. So, lagging indicators and all measurables are important, but if the job is finished and we do an accounting, we go, oh, we didn't make much money there. Okay, how do we improve and go on the next time? But what if we have better scorecards at the project management level, at our estimating level? What if we have better scorecard at the project superintendent level, at the people in the field level, so that we have leading indicators that we've built out over time in really understanding the process so that they can raise their hand and then go, hey, we're just pouring concrete. We still have a year on this thing, but this is about to go off the rails because of this, this, and this. So one of the things you'll find is that if you do outstanding process work and you really capture leading indicators and measurables, you have fantastic scorecard information. This trickles down to every part of the business. So now it's easier to manage people because you're talking about scorecards. As a lifelong salesman and business developer, I can tell you that the emotional, oh, you're not doing very well, Brett, you haven't closed enough, is not a fun way to work. When you have great scorecards that measure all of the leading indicators in a sales process, it's much easier to manage salespeople, and I know this firsthand. So think about leading indicators, how you capture those, and how those drive scorecards, and how they affect your process by keeping things on the rails. The other value in the predictive value of scorecards is that your hiring, your onboarding, your training becomes better because you start to realize the qualities and you start to be able to articulate really what you're hiring. So think about all the times you hear your clients say, well, we hired this person for this seat, but that didn't really work out. We believe that most times that's because of a poor process at the high level, because in the interview process, all of the well-intentioned questions and interviewing and getting to the right elements, they aren't really following the process for which we're hiring. If you can articulate that, then this people problem gets better faster, and it gets faster by order of magnitude. I think the other thing that we pull out of this scorecard information is this, and we hear this every week. One of our CPOs was in Detroit last year, and they were working with a company, an old company, family-owned company, and they had some 20, 25-year-old or 25-year employees. And these employees, in attending the workshop and in participating in adding to how the process is done, they were contributing things that completely blew the leadership team away. When these people finished, they left the room and the leadership team said, oh my goodness, that guy's been here for 20 years. He touches all our customers. He's stoic, he's hard-handed, he never says anything. You got him to contribute all of this. My gosh, how did you do that? Well, this is one of the hard DIYs for doing process work. You have to have an open, fun environment for people to participate. It's been a remarkable part of our business because we are thriving and having fun precisely because we are the outside third party. So if you tackle this yourself, work on creating that environment where you're creating this environment where people can contribute, and the worker bees are truly going to raise their hand and say, yep, I'll tell you how we're doing this. And then you have to be able to get through that, because as they contribute all of these nuggets, that's your scorecard information. You capture them, excuse me, and then test and pilot so everybody agrees. So how did I do? Am I within 15 minutes?
Yes, you're perfectly timed. You're so perfectly timed that I had to find my unmute button. So thank you. You did great. The pace at which you